If I were to tell one guy who was brand new starting his coaching career, hey, how do I build culture? And you had one thing to say, this is the most important piece of it, what would it be?
Well, I would say that one thing I say a lot here is, and we use this a lot even with the kids, but what you're seeing, you're either coaching it or allowing it.
Hey guys, welcome to the Game Changers League podcast, where we're cultivating culture, shaping the future of sports with our conversations. Tonight I'm delighted about the special guest that we have tonight with us. We're actually in his house right here. Coach Brent Marley here at Rejoice Christian Academy, Rejoice Christian School here in Owasso, Oklahoma. And I'm excited. I got a chance to meet Brent a few years ago whenever I was actually here talking with you about a job. Moving out to Oklahoma, and really just was inspired. You know, normally you go, you're in a job interview, and you're looking, and you're nervous, man. Like, he made something come alive in me just hanging out with him that day. And we're here in their indoor practice facility for their football program. Baseball uses it quite a bit. And we're going to have a conversation with a guy that's really doing some amazing things here at Rejoice, coming off of a state championship this year in football. And so it's a great pleasure to have you with us tonight, man. I appreciate you taking the time, opening your space up to us and allow us to come in here. I just felt like it'd be really cool to get out of the studio, come see where you do your work, and have this conversation with you. So we've been talking a lot about culture. And in our program, we talk about cultivating culture, in athletic programs, and so we've been talking about the building blocks of culture. We've been talking about standards and values, and talking about teams coming together through conditioning and all of that, how you build your culture in the off season and different things like that. I want you to just dive into your journey, how you ended up here, what your vision was when you got here, and how you began to build the culture of what is now a phenomenal school in the state of Oklahoma, an athletic program that I would say is second to none.
Yeah, real powerhouse.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what's happening here, and so we just want to hear the story.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you all for having me on, Aaron. Corey, appreciate you guys. Darius, man behind the camera back there. But it's an honor. The Lord told me 4 or 5 years ago that, when you're on this journey in the years coming up, that if anybody asks you to speak, whether that's FCA or a youth group or a podcast, go do it. And so
we thought we were special, so God was working behind the scenes. Okay, all right, that's good.
So yeah, I'm just honored that you guys asked me to do this, and obviously it takes a group effort for the things you mentioned to be in this facility, beyond a coach's wildest dreams, but it wasn't always that way. And so we can talk about that.
Yeah,
so
let's do.
My coaching journey started out in 2001. It was my first year. I coached at Coweta High School, my alma mater, where I went to high school. And I was kind of a GA coach helping out as I was finishing school at Oklahoma State. My wife was finishing her degree, too, with education, student teaching. And after I graduated from OSU, got hired at Victory Christian in Tulsa in 2002. And that was a blessing, starting a program that was really young there. I wasn't the head coach, but I was an assistant for 2 years and became the offensive coordinator pretty quickly there as we were building that program, which, hadn't had football since, I think they started in 99. And in 2004, we find ourselves in the 3A state championship game,
Wow.
which was a quick turnaround for an infant program. So I'd kind of saw how that worked, and then in 2007 there, the Lord opened the door for me to take over that program and be the head coach. I'd gotten a job at Tulsa Union when Kirk Frederick had gotten the head job there at Union, and he had offered me a job there, and I had turned in my resignation at Victory. I was leaving, and they came back, and our head coach that I was under, Jim Cherry at the time, he had resigned one morning, and before I actually went, I was going that day to meet the kids at Union. And Victory's admin came and found me and said, hey, would you stay if you took over? It was the head coach. And so I called my dad and asked him if he could meet for lunch. And I told him, hey, Union, victory. And he said, well, what an opportunity at Union, but what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a head coach. And I thought, man, taking over a 3A program that had been in the state championship 2 years before, what a great first head job, And so I did that. And then 2007, so that was our first season as a head coach, and we win the district championship, right? And you think that, man, this is going to be good. And then in 2008, the next year, my second year, we went 2-8. And then in 2009, my third year, we went 0-10. And I'm 28 years old at the time. And so I'll never forget that valley in 2009 when we went 0-10. My pastor, Billy Joe Doherty, that hired me at Victory to be the head coach, he was our man. My wife and I were plugged in, young family. We were having kids during that time frame, and he got sick, and he came down with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And about week 4 or 5, he stopped coming to our football games, and he never came back to our games. And so he went to heaven in November of that year. And you're teaching kids about faith and about scripture and faith-based and everything. And when Pastor went to heaven, one of the biggest men of faith you've ever been around in a school that's all about speaking the word and faith. And it was a great teaching time for kids. But I say great, it was very gritty and tough. Yeah. And at the same time, we're not winning in football. We also had my wife and I led a young married cell group Bible study at our house on Thursday nights. And we had some dear friends of ours that were in our group, and everybody bring their kids over, and their 4-year-old daughter one night just had a seizure and went into a coma. And so we're at the hospital for 2 weeks, and she winds up going to heaven as well. And then our football team is, not winning a game. I'll never forget week 7 that year. We had lost, of course, and I went out to my truck, or got in my truck, drove to the stadium. It was about midnight. Everybody had left. It was on a Friday night. And I'm sitting in my truck, and I'm just crying out to the Lord, like, why? Like, what? I mean, I thought everything I do, everything I touch should prosper. Seek him first, and seek the first the kingdom. He'll give you the desires of your heart, right? The desires of my heart was to have a good program, and it wasn't happening. And my phone rang, my cell phone, my big Nokia, cell phone at about midnight. And it was a coach that had been with me at Victory my first year in 07, and 2 years earlier. And he said he saw on the news that we had lost again. And he said he was praying for me. And the Holy Spirit told him, the Lord just come down and told him to call me. And I'm sitting in my truck, and I said, wow. And I was crying, man. I'm just sitting there, wanting to know what's going on. And he said, the Lord told me to tell you, do you have your logo anywhere? And I said, well, my hat's in the seat next to me. He said, pick up your hat. I picked it up. He said, look at your hat. I looked at my hat, and he said, what is on your hat? I said, our logo. He said, yeah, but what is your logo? I said, it's a V. He said, but what does it do? I said, what do you mean? What? He said, explain to me what the V does. I said, well, it starts at one point, and it goes down, and it gets to a point, and then it goes back up. He said, that's what's going on.
Wow.
You're going down, and it's going to get worse. You're not to the point yet. But just keep being faithful. Keep seeking him. Keep leading young men with integrity that you, as best you know how, and you're going to get to a point, and it's going to go back up. He said, but it's going to get worse. Well, at that point, Pastor hadn't went to heaven yet, because it's not in November yet. We're like in probably mid to late October, week 7. And nor had the young 4-year-old girl, Jordan, in our cell group went to heaven. So I hadn't gone through that stuff yet. But we did. We lost 3 more. In week 9 and 10, going into those 2 games, I had a couple parents went to administration, and they asked administration, would you please cancel the last 2 football games? Because we had about 19 kids healthy.
Wow.
And 8 or 9 of them were freshmen.
Yeah.
And they didn't want their sons to get, beat up, and we were getting ready to play Berry Hill week 9 and Claremore Sequoia week 10. Well, they both wound up being in the semifinals that year. Yeah. Berry Hill made the state championship. I think they lost to Cassia Hall. The 4 teams in the semifinals in 3A that year were all out of our district.
Wow.
All 4 from our district. So we were 0-10, but our schedule was brutal. But I'll never forget, we lose week 10, and my dad came down on the field and gave me a hug, and he said, "Hey, look at it this way. You had a perfect season. If you would have won tonight, you'd have went 1-9, and you'd have messed it up." And said, you can't win them all. And so anyway, brought some humor into it. But we stayed the course. They didn't fire me, which was unbelievable. And like all that with Pastor and all that happened, it was a rough deal. But our boys came back in January, and they were ready to work. And that group went 5-5 the next year, and we made the playoffs. We were the only team in Oklahoma, all classes, to go 0-10 the year before, and then make the playoffs the following year. Yeah. And then they went 7-3, and then we went 10-0 like 2 years in a row in the regular season after that. And anyway, I had a great run there, and then the Lord in 2014, I wasn't probably listening because I would have stayed there. We were building, put in turf, track, new locker room, and we're 29-5 the last 3 years combined. And it was, looking back, it was disappointing because you're in a Christian institution, but there was some stuff going on behind the scenes with some parents and admin and some people on staff that kind of wanted me to make some moves on my staff. So I was asked to get rid of a couple coaches and then move a couple over and bring in a couple. And I didn't feel comfortable doing that because I preached loyalty to my kids and I'm not saying anything bad about anybody because I'm so grateful for my time there. And I was supposed to go through this. See, so many times when we're going through trial and as believers, we just look for comfortable.
Yeah.
We want to be comfortable, and we want our life to flow towards comfortable till we can retire and finances are great and we get the lake house and all that. And I think that's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
It's like Tim Tebow says, adversity, either it's here, it just left, or it's on its way.
Yeah.
Right? So we will have trial and tribulation. I was supposed to go through this, and I didn't understand it at the time. But I wrestled with it I was told to make this move after our season in November, and I didn't. I preached loyalty to our kids and our coaches. So I decided not to make any changes, and I just let it roll. Well, come March, we're 4 months later, I was called in again. What are you going to do? And I said, I'm not doing anything. And I was told, well, we may have to make a decision with you. And I had my letter of resignation ready. And the Holy Spirit had been telling me for a few weeks to go ahead and resign. And I just turned in my letter of resignation. And it was almost, and people told me, don't do it until you have another job. And the Holy Spirit said, do it that day. And I didn't have another job. And I had 3 boys, family to feed. My wife's in education. And I didn't do it. And, but I resigned that day. And it was like the best experience I could, if you're ever like sick at your stomach and you need to throw up, but you fight it, and you don't do it, and you don't do it. And then when you do throw up, you're like, why didn't I do this 4 hours ago? Because I feel better now.
Yeah.
Well, when I resigned that day and didn't have a job, I was being obedient to the Holy Spirit. And I was at total peace.
Yeah.
And the Tulsa World did an article that Saturday that I had resigned. And I had friends in the coaching business. We were talking about Rashawn Woods when he was at John Marshall, called me immediately, offered me a job. Joe Medina, the head coach at Cassia Hall, offered me a job. Jared McCoy at Metro Christian offered me a job. I had opportunities immediately within 2-3 days to go be an assistant somewhere. I still wanted to be a head coach, and so we had thought we had a house picked out. I'd interviewed twice at Van Buren, Arkansas. Thought we were going to Van Buren. Also had an opportunity to go be a freshman coach at Bentonville High School in Arkansas, and had a former family at Victory that had came out to Owasso a few years earlier. Their son had played for me in junior high, and the dad called me and said, hey, Rejoice Christian is looking for a head coach to build an 11-man program. And I'm like, who is that? I think we played him in, junior high, but they had just gotten out of 8-man in 2014. There was their first year of 11-man. I didn't know anything about it. We were 3A Victory. We'd been powerhouse and had some great teams. And so I came out here for a courtesy interview for my friend, the dad that had kids at Victory years earlier. And when I came out here, I cannot explain it, but 86th Street campus, it's Battle Creek Church of Owasso now. No facilities, played at A-Tour, used the 7th grade center at Owasso, grateful for Owasso Public Schools at the time for letting us use their facilities. No weight room, a garage shed out back that had one weight bench in it. And I interviewed, and I could not have felt more peace about that opportunity. And, I mean, the equipment room was in the home ec room upstairs. And the home ec room is where they had their helmets and their pads stored. That tells you the state of the program when we came here. I was blessed to be able to bring my offensive coordinator with me from Victory, and he came with me as an assistant AD. The interview was all about building a football program. It was an hour interview, and in the last 5 minutes, I asked, what's the day job? I don't know if it was teaching history or whatever, and they said, oh, it's the AD. But that's easy. You can go home and take a nap every day. And so, that first year, that you couldn't take a nap because we were trying to build stuff, but with no facilities, it was pretty easy. But yeah, so we came in, moved out here, and later on hired another coach from Victory, our strength coach and O-line coach, and families all moved out here. It was a family affair. It was like, let's go do this, right? And the administration, man, I'm just grateful for that time because they got out of my way.
Yeah.
They hired me, and they trusted me to do the job,
Yeah.
and they said, hey, go do it. And
That's
so
important.
I'm like looking at the handbook, and like they had a fight song, but no music. That was the first thing I noticed. And they're like, where's the music? I want to hear the fight. Oh, we don't have music, but there's lyrics in the handbook, the school handbook of this fight song. So I went to the Rejoice Church worship leader, and I met his name was Byron Trimble at the time, and I said, hey, here's our lyrics in the school's handbook. I'm taking this job. I need a fight song. Well, why is that one of the first things that you're trying to do? Because the first thing that I knew we had to do was to build culture.
Yeah.
Like we got to, we're going to turn this thing upside down. And so he came back a week later and said, Florida Gators, orange and blue. That's your music. It goes perfect with her. And now it's played here all the time. I mean, you hear it all the time. Our guys sang it together. They sang to our home crowd every game. After games, win or lose, we sing together in the summertime. We practice before the season starts because we got to get ready to sing it in front of our crowd. We do it as a group. In this facility, in this hallway here, there is a graphic all the way down one of the walls that's got our fight song on it. And there's a picture that's faded out in the background of boys with their arms around each other with papers in their hand. And what those papers are, those are the lyrics in the fight song over on 86th Street back in 2015. The very first time we took them into the music room to learn the words and to sing the song together. And it's in this building out here, and so that's a special, looking at those kids on that is a special moment. So we get going. We have a meeting. We create expectation. We kind of talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
Here's the standard. Laid it out there. There's no wiggle room. Like we're going to do this if you want to be a part of it or not. Thankfully, we had a great group of young men and parents that bought in, whether they didn't behind the scenes or not.
Right.
They did it enough to buy in. And we bust the kids from 86th Street to 136th Street off 169. We had no weight rooms. So we bust them to a warehouse that had weights all summer, 4 days a week, the ones that couldn't drive and meet us there. We did it at 6:15, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday during the season, that first fall. They'd meet us in the parking lot if they couldn't drive. We'd get on the bus, drive to 136th Street, lift weights before school, drive them back. No excuses. Like we had to represent the no excuses mentality to these families and these kids. We're going to find a way. And so that's what we did. We went 0-2 to start the season. We lose to Kiefer week 2, 49-0. Okay, 49-0. And they were a kind of a Class A powerhouse at the time. We're in our second year of 11-man football. And I looked at the schedule, and I'm like, I don't think we're going to win a game. I don't know if we're going to win a game. And my guys I brought with me, my coaches, I'm like, what are we doing? What did we get ourselves into? Well, week 3, we beat Barnstall. And then week 4, we played our first district ball game. Number 3 or 4 ranked Ketchum, which was picked to win the district and ranked in the top 5 in Oklahoma, come to A-Tour. And we beat them like 35-14. And people were like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like that too. Like, what just happened? My grandpa passed away that week in Lawton, and he was my closest grandparent. And I had to go down to Lawton for 3 days. I missed practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I got a staff of 3 with me.
Wow.
And I mean, I was just like, that week was back to the phone call in my truck. Yeah. Okay, this is not about me. This is not about us. It was just a total surrender, and man, the guys just played out of their minds that night, and I think the culture even, was just being built even more and more. But yeah, that was kind of the start. 1 year at A Tour, and then the elementary school was built that year. This whole campus was an amazing blessing by a donor named Eddie Gibbs, who had his daughter was at school at Rejoice at the time, and has grandkids, even some grandkids still here. And grandson graduated a few years ago, but he's had family here, and man, I know I've been going a lot. I want to, maybe y'all have some questions at that time, or I can pick up and keep going.
I have a question if you
Yes.
Go for it.
Yeah.
When you're talking about, because you're talking about literally starting something from the ground up.
Yeah.
What did you see looking back on the experience as like, this is the most important piece? Obviously, there's so many moving pieces of building culture. This would be like, this is the staple of like, if I were to tell one guy who was brand new starting his coaching career, hey, how do I build culture? And you had one thing to say, this is the most important piece of it, what would it be?
Well, I would say that one thing I say a lot here is, and we use this a lot even with the kids, but what you're seeing, you're either coaching it or allowing it. So it's like, goes back to the no excuses mentality. Like, if it's happening, then you're either coaching it or allowing it.
Yeah.
And now with young men, sometimes you can coach them and they will still revert back to muscle memory or their way of a stance that's been wrong, and they'll go back to that, but then it's not over. Who said it's over? Then keep coaching them on it.
Yeah.
Until they get it right. And I think a lot of that for us is probably why we went 0-2. We had to like get some things growing. I mean, after the third game, we had set the school passing record for a season. Right? Like, so they hadn't thrown the ball here. I mean, there was records that people were loving it. I mean, even we were losing, we were throwing the ball the first two games. And so, but I would say that, and then culture is installed from the top down, but it's instilled from the bottom up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
So you have to be passionate. You have to have zeal and fervor of the Lord. He talks about in Romans 12. Like, you got to live that, and you got to let the young men see that. And there's nothing that can replace passion.
Yeah.
Nothing. And so I think coming in with zeal, if I'm talking to a young coach that's taking over a program, you better find your convictions.
Yeah.
Find what you believe in, and it better be what you believe in, because if it's not, you won't be disciplined in it.
Yeah.
Right? And so find what is non-negotiables. Create a mission statement. Okay? Our mission statement here is to produce young men that believe they have what it takes, while passionately being all in life, while we journey to become our best together. And talk about winning a state championship.
Yeah.
And talk about winning 10 games. We're going to be our best together. Passionately being all in. Like, that they believe they have what it takes. You got to believe. And if you don't believe, you're done.
Yeah.
Faith without works is dead.
Yeah.
So start with, you better believe. That goes back to the convictions. Your core values. We have 5 core values here. We established core values. Ours are our HUD-FI. Heart, unity, dependability, fight, and integrity. We defined every one of those. Okay, so heart is absolute resolve from within to accomplish a goal, right? So we have the guys learn the definitions. They're in the team room. Like, if it's on the wall, it better be going on down the hall, or I don't want it on the wall.
Yeah.
Like, don't put it on the wall to have a quote or a core value if you're not going to go back to it all the time. So our 5 core values, we established those. That was a lot of prayer. A lot of prayer, bringing young men in and talking to them about what is important. And there's been times even at Victory I'd have different core values each season. Well, when we got here, kind of thought about that, but then we're really like, let's just nail it down and stay with it. And so we still want ownership, though, by the kids. We like to decentralize command and give the kids a lot of ownership, because when people own stuff, they'll take pride in it, right?
That's right.
And a good pride, not the worldly type of pride. And so we let them vote on the 6th core value every season. So we have 6. Like this last year in the States year, it was believe. And boy, what a word to go win the whole thing.
Yeah.
You better believe. We had a lot of adversity. This next year, they've already voted the seniors to be for the 26 class, and it's discipline. which what a word for a season where you won it last year and now you're expected to go, what are you going to do? Well, your discipline better be better than it's ever done because it's going to be tougher.
Yeah.
It's going to be tougher than last year. I don't care what you –
target on your back.
Target on your back.
Target on your back.
All of that. And So starting our core values. I'm not going to define all of them. I could run through them. Sorry, I could run through them. Heart, unity, dependability, fight, and integrity. But our kids know those. And with those, we have a first things first devotion every day. And so coaches lead it on Mondays. Players lead it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Guest speaker on Friday. But the players know if they're leading first things first on Tuesday, it's unity. Okay, so that's our second word. So they refer Scripture, a couple verses, back to unity. I tell them to pray about it. And here's the deal. We don't assign the kids to first things first. They pick dates, and they pray about it. They choose. It's posted in the locker room, and they're ready to go. And they bring it. And this year it was incredible. I'm like back there like, this is unbelievable. And we don't cut them short either. If they're supposed to be 5 to 10 minutes, if a kid goes for 20, then we cut out period 12, period 14. Guys cut out period 21. Because it doesn't matter. We're going to lose the game because we had first things first, went too long. Okay, well, if we're talking about Jesus and first things first, I'll take a loss.
Yeah.
Right? So we're going to keep our priorities straight, and that's what first things first is all about. And so HUDFI, HUDFI, HUD is short for huddle. Huddle means closely together.
Yeah.
Phi is short for Fidelis, Semper Fi. Fidelis means always faithful. So our HUDFI means together faithful.
Yeah.
Well, together faithful is the opposite of sin.
Yeah.
So sin is selfishness, I'm in, S-I-N, okay? Sin is you are isolated.
Yeah.
You're not together.
Yeah.
You're alone. You are not faithful. You're unfaithful. Sin is an isolated, unfaithful event. And every time we sin, in life, you are pleasing yourself, your selfishness, that sin. And so our core values here fight sin.
Yeah.
HUDFI fights sin when we go through that. So we have a process pyramid in our team room, and HUDFI is at the foundation. Obviously, our foundation is Jesus Christ, but that process pyramid is everything that we talk about all the way up to our mantra at the very top of the pyramid, which is rise above.
Yeah.
And I can get into that too. That's a huge part of our core values. I mean, not our core values, but our culture. So, but if y'all have, I'll kind of
Go
stop
for it.
I'm ready to run through a brick wall.
Okay.
I'm telling you.
Okay. So
Now you know why I was inspired today that I came over and hung out with him.
So our mantra. So we took this position, and we're coaching and creating this, trying to create this environment. And I'm like, our mascot's the eagle. What is it just going to be like the Philadelphia Eagles? I mean, we got an eagle. There's eagles all over the country, right?
Yeah.
What? No, there's got to be something about the eagle. And we were playing another school that first year, and it was the coach from Hulbert. And we had an injury on the field, and I'm out there on the field with our kid. I had a terrible injury, and the coach, I'm standing there praying for this kid, and the head coach at the time of Hulbert hands me a bracelet, a rubber bracelet, and it says, keep pumping on it. And I'm like, Coach, what? He said, I'm going to send you something tomorrow. So this coach, all coaches steal things from other coaches, right? He sends me this thing on keep pumping. It was about the early settlers in Oklahoma. And I'm kind of a history buff. I taught Oklahoma history for years. Like in Oklahoma, we have we're number 2 in shoreline in the United States of America. We have fresh fishable water. We're besides Michigan, because of Lake Michigan, we're number 2. We have, but none of our lakes are natural. They're all man-made. Mm-hmm. That's why this was the Dust Bowl in Indian Territory, and that's why Andrew Jackson sent them here on the Trail of Tears and all of that, because this was a barren wasteland. Well, in the 1930s, the FDR New Deal project, all these lakes were built, right? The dams, the canals, and all these rivers, and so. But the settlers before that, they didn't have water. They had to, if they didn't make their pump wells and make their well, they're going to die. You're going to die. So you no excuses.
Yeah.